This ostracan depicts two ancient Egyptian men ready to go into combat. And some people call this fighting tatib, which is actually incorrect because tatib is a single stick fighting technique, whereas this one engages in two. It's a dual fighting stick technique, which is actually very common in Africa. And as you can see, they're holding a pose which is very interesting. And this pose is usually the pose used to engage in combat by this culture. Now, so if you don't know, you don't actually have to hold this technique if you were to engage in any type of stick fighting, dual stick fighting. I can give examples of stick fighting from all over the world where they do not hold this position, where the sticks start lower on the ground or they start both of them in the air or somewhere in the middle. This unique stance is rare and it's only in Africa that you find it. And as you can see in Egypt, it evolved and sort of they replaced the stick with just a shield on the arm to replace the dual stick fighting with just one stick in the hand. Why is this important? Well, it's important because it shows that it's not just words or frames or pictures that were similar to ancient Egypt. It's also their main culture in general. Of course, wrestling and stuff like that is also seen in ancient Egypt. But the problem with wrestling is that it's seen all over the world in more than one way. But most of the wrestling in ancient Egypt started being associated with Nubians because of their prowess in wrestling. And I only mention it because ancient Egypt and ancient Nubia have always been together in this, and there's a reason why Nubia had wrestling as well. And last but not least, if you take this stick fighting to its logical conclusion, you can tell that it has to do with um, quick succession engagement. That's why they're in that pose because they want to what's the word I'm looking for? They want to startle the other person. They don't want him to know when they're gonna hit. Some people again mistake it for tatib, which is a completely different stick fighting, which this type of stick fighting mimics sword fighting or spear fighting, and it's more of a military training technique rather than a game that you would play in general. Whereas this one, as you can see, is virtually impossible to use using a sword. You would cut yourself. But if you think about the stance that they're holding right now, so look at the body, crouched, the knee, the leg that is closest to your opponent is vulnerable to attacks, as you can see. And as you can see in the stick fighting, they don't really attack the legs, but they do. That's why you have the second stick. The second stick is to block you, except when they are in very specific types, like the one where they use the shield. There, you're only allowed to attack the upper body. But you can see, let's start again. Okay, so a crouched body, as you can see, the leg is facing the opponent instead of standing side by side. They're crouched down to the bottom and the stick is way up in the air. These are the rules of this engagement. And as you can see, it's perfectly depicted. Dual sword, dual sticks, and it's doing the exact same thing. But how does this compare to dual fighting techniques from other countries? Well, let's compare.
So the idea being, first of all, in Zulu stick fighting, if I'm right-handed, I put my left foot forward, I put my defending stick in this hand, and then I have a shield to protect my hand. Because if I didn't have the shield, then my hand would be out there exposed. So you have a shield to protect your hand. Then the club is in the other hand, and the idea is, the whole idea of Zulu stick fighting is how do you get around that defending stick? Because if Scott is here, see, if we're doing regular stick fighting, if he hits me angle 1, I block here. If he hits me angle 2, I block here. If he hits low, if I'm gonna block, I have to drop the stick. If he hits low on the other side, I have to drop. So I have all those different defenses that I have to do. Whereas with the Zulu stick fighting, I don't have to make much movement because I have this long defending stick. Hits me high, that's my defense. High on the other side, low, low. So see, I don't have to make a lot of movement right in there. Just block, 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 block. Sometimes this way also or here. So the whole trick is, how do you get around that shield? So what they do in Zulu stick fighting, a lot of times, see, you'll see when we start, he's going to hit me, see, we're going here, and we just kind of hit back and forth like this, and there's a lot of setting up.
This setting up is the reason why the sticks are always depicted in the air, because the majority of the time they would be in the air in order to do the setup. And as you can see, this is a very sophisticated way of fighting, and you cannot do it with one stick. It would make it much less complicated.
Tricks they use to get past that shield is they'll start here. They'll start with a stick going to the outside, and at the last minute they turn their hand over so it goes inside. So it goes from outside to inside. That would be categorized, Bruce Lee would have called that a progressive indirect attack, because it starts toward one target, switches direction to hit another target. So they start here and then it goes over the top there. Here, or sometimes you might start here and go down to the leg or inside. So one more time, from here into the leg or into the knee there. So that's the from outside to inside.